Welcome, everybody. This is Sheila Kumar Hay of Ecstatic Birth, and I'm live today with my guest, Gena McCarthy. I'm really, really excited to have Gena with me here today because she has such an interesting background, which I'll let her tell you about, but it's really this like integrative, science-based, Eastern, Western, holistic minded background where she brings everything together and drops you in to a really present state. And she does this work for, birth practitioners to really resource themselves. And I really am excited for this conversation to transform birth because I feel like this is a time that we're all kind of like whirling, right? Like I've talked about how this is a global birthing field, how we're really feeling those waves. And sometimes when you feel those waves, like it can kick up fear and our minds are spinning, like what's going to happen with the future, what's going to happen with birth, within the hospitals, with elections, with COVID. Like there's a lot of spinning. And so this spot that I think Gena is so gifted at bringing in, this spot of like presence and the sacred through ritual, is a really, really important spot. And so, before I go on, I just want to welcome you, Gena. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm a big fan and appreciator of your work, Sheila.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And can we just begin by having you tell everyone about the work that you do and all the different disciplines that you're drawing from?
Yeah, I so appreciate that. I'm really bridging the East and the West, the community organizer, leftist background, and then the healer wisdom. And I've been privileged and honored to have so many teachers that have taught me all of this, as well as my own wisdom stream. I'm grateful for that. And so I'm a nurse, a perinatal psychotherapist, a student and teacher of healing and spiritual growth. And today, though, we're really focusing on ceremonies, and I've had so many beautiful teachers, and really I want to mention a couple of them very briefly. One is Sabone Fuso May, whose name means bringer of the rituals. And she wrote a beautiful book that I really recommend called Welcoming Spirit Home. And it's this little book, and it's so powerful. And it's all about the connectedness in her community around supporting parents before they even become pregnant, to feel empowered and supported and ready, and then throughout the whole process. And the other person was Angeles Arian, who wrote The Fourfold Way. And she really taught ceremony and shamanic practices and cross-cultural healing as the universal practice that all of us have in our original ancestors' backgrounds.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And you and I have talked a little bit about how like nourishing this can be in this time, like how nourishing it can be. And I want to presence the idea that I feel like, if I was like a little bit, the part of me that's like agitated, that like wants to know what's going to happen, that feels like, oh my God, we've got so much work to do. That part of me feels like, how could we possibly slow down? And yet I know that that's exactly what we need. So I would love to have you share like how you feel ceremony can be really potent medicine for this time.
Yeah. So Sheila and I were just talking a moment before we started this. And there's two things I want to say. We'll go into the quiet. We can do some of that here together. But when we have a lot of power and we're in transition, and when we're in transition, we can get triggered, like you said, and we can just feel like we're spinning and spinning. And that part of us that feels insecure and doesn't know the future can spin. But when we slow down and connect to our bodies, to the earth, to the sun, to the waters, to the air, the sky, and when we really connect with our own inner wisdom, which doesn't take long, really, but we do need to feel safe in our bodies. So we need to do practices that allow us to feel safe in our bodies. But when we come to that place, then we have the power of intention. And I'm going to say one thing about that before we kind of go into this circle here, and that is that last night I talked with a doula, who's a dear friend of mine and a birth spirituality and healing facilitator. And she updated me about what's going on in the hospitals and what's going on with COVID for mamas and babies and nurses and doulas and everyone. And I really got a sense of it. And so I sent out a note to my ceremony sisters. Let's get together, not only for a ceremony for our own renewal, but to actually put our intention out together. And as we were talking earlier, not in that, secret magic way, as if we could control things, because we can't control anything. And yet we have power with our collective intention. And we can put out our intention to see the situation begin to go the way we as mamas and as women want it to go, in a way that has equity and economic sustenance and care for all. So now bringing the ceremonies back to us here now. So I would invite people now who are listening to take a moment and to feel the surfaces of the earth underneath. Well, feel the surfaces of your body and know that the earth is underneath your body. And know that her power and her beauty and her resilience and her dedication to balance is underneath your body and is in your body. And take a moment to just know that. And I'm going to know that with you for a moment. Mm-hmm. And then another aspect of ceremony is, like I said, this intention, but it's also waking up your relationships with all the support that's here. There's so much support that's here for us that, because we have a very disconnected culture, we're out of touch with. So it takes building our muscles. But as you open to whatever support you feel is here for you, that that has heart and meaning. So it can be spiritual beings, but it can be your ancestors, it can be your pets, it can be your loving wisdom family. And so getting in touch with that support, so then you're asking for support. So Sheila, I'm just going with this for a moment. If you want, I'm going to do like just this mini process. Is that good?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, so we just go with that. We just take a moment to it. I'm going to close my eyes again and I invite you to join me to just bring all those loving support energies, loving wisdom support energies that actually are in our lives right now, with all the worrying and all of it. They're right here with us all the time, and they're here right now. And taking a moment to feel that support and that in your body. And of course, the breath helps a lot with that. So you might want to take a deep breath or two. And then notice I've got my hand on my heart. I can really feel the support of my hand on my heart, and that will support you also. Because our bodies need so much support to feel safe, to enjoy this amazing lifetime. So anything you can do to help bring you back to feeling safe in your body is a great practice right now for everyone and for yourself. And so from this place of feeling supported and connected, Now you can just get in touch with what would be really useful for you to let go of right now. So you're bringing your intention, you're bringing your sincerity, your vulnerability, your truth telling, your presence, you're showing up. What would be really useful for me to let go of right now that gets in my way of feeling safe, of feeling trust in this process that we're in, this reweaving of our world to be a world of care? How can I trust during this time? What would support me to let go of? What's in my way? And so you can open now to that support energy you've opened to. It might just be your inner intuition, or it might be more. And just listen for a moment and know what you're open to let go of. And you can just imagine, if you want, putting that, because we don't have a candle right now to light to symbolize that. You can imagine putting that in a compost heap or a fire pit, or lighting a candle, so that you really see that energy transform what you're letting go of. Take a moment to do that. I have a very rapid compost heap. And then now take a moment and just open to, from that same source, however you experience it, and this loving wisdom energy, all the love that's here for you in this lifetime. And there's a lot of it, even from sources you don't even know yet. So take a moment and open to that. And then what will support you during this time? To trust and to really honor the unique gift you are that our world needs right now. What will support you during this time to trust, so you can keep bringing forth your light? So take a moment and see what you learn about that. What is the quality that will support you now to bring into your life and really cultivate? And then when you're ready, you can even imagine a symbol of this quality, that you're taking it and you're going to keep it and look at it now and then. So it becomes more embodied, it becomes more manifest in your daily lives. So take a moment and just notice, what is that quality? And what is the symbol of it? And then when you're ready, taking all the time you need and knowing you'll remember all of this, come back to our FaceTime live communication time together. Taking your time, you're making, a transition from being in a deeper state to a more talkative state. And you might even take one more moment to just know that sometime today you'll take a little more time to integrate and ground what you received through journaling or talking or so on. Okay.
Yeah. Gena, thank you. That was so beautiful and so soothing and so calming.
Good. Good. That's what we can do.
Yeah.
Those are our natural resources.
Yeah. So when we talk about ceremony, like the first thing that comes to my mind is like some big, elaborate something, right? But it doesn't have to be. It can be, this was a ceremony.
It was. It's a
Yeah.
little ceremony.
Yeah.
But it was, you can go deep in it.
You can go deep. Yeah. That felt really nourishing. And so, how do we bring that into birth? How do we bring that into the birthing room for our, our professionals and for our mamas? How can we find that spot?
I love that. So I'm going to say a few things, and I am going to mention the Sacred Basket program. That's my online program that I'm offering, just because you can get so much help for bringing it into the birth world. And I have an explanation in that about the relationship between our spiritual growth and our personal perinatal history and our ability to heal and what's effective for that. And so I give you a map of really what Sheila's doing in her beautiful program, which is going from trauma to feeling okay to experience wonder and pleasure. And then I give you a lot of information about ceremonies. And I give you some of the roots, our original roots and stories from other cultures. And I give you examples of how we're using them now. We offer parent ceremonies. And also, I have a local peer professional ceremony circle I'm in. So we don't charge anything. We just do it because it feeds us and it feeds our community. And then there's a lot of ways to do this, but through this program, I connect with you and I can support you to start that in your community. Because, you know, like Sheila said, I started 2 integrative health programs and 2 HMOs, perinatal integrative health programs. And what I love about integrative health and ceremony or any mind-body practice, spiritual practice, is it brings out the best of us. And you fall in love with each other. And you can really cut through so much competition and build the community that we need right now. That's what's going to get us through. So, yeah, so the Sacred Basket program is one thing I wanted to mention. And then this other idea of if you already have, and a lot of women have picked it up from different places, ceremonial practices, start one in your community. Because oh my God, it's like it builds the best parts of each other, connecting. And then also it builds that power, because when you come together from that place, you have insight what you can do on a practical level to change things. And then with parents, I'll just tell you briefly what we do with parents. It's so beautiful. So we have a becoming parent ceremony, and we say, we do a grounding, and then we have this beautiful practice where they tell each other an affirmation that the other partner has right now, quality the other partner has that makes them a great parent before they're even a parent. So they get that from each other, which is so important because our culture is missing a lot of that now, that worthiness, that knowing that I'm worthy. And then after that, we do pretty much what we just did. What is the quality that gets in the way of becoming the parent you want to be? And what is the quality that will support you? And when parents do that, they say things like, oh, now I feel safe to see what I need to heal. Now I feel safe to see what's been scaring me. Oh, now I see a way to bring spiritual practice into my family. So there's a lot that people receive from that they need. And as a perinatal psychotherapist certified in EMDR, I know scientifically that what's happening is their limbic system feels safe to identify, oh, this is what I really need to deal with. Whereas if you ask someone cognitively, well, you know, what are you scared of or whatever, a lot of times they're just going to shut down. And then that's going to appear, as we know, in unuseful ways in their life and so on. So, so it's a very useful vehicle. It's not the only vehicle, but it's very useful. And so then at the end of that ceremony, the parents write a love letter to their babies after they go through that process. And so, you know, there's so many more ceremonies that would be really useful to do, but that's our basic one right now because we're still becoming user-friendly.
And I love that you gave us a taste of that, because that was one thing when you were talking, I was feeling like, okay, so first you're creating that foundation of safety, right? That foundation of being held by the earth, by loving energies, ancestral, divine, whatever you feel connected to. So you create that foundation of safety. And when you feel that safety, like you said, it speaks to your somatic body, it speaks to your limbic brain. So you're able to drop in and really see what's there. Whereas when you don't feel safe and you're in fear and you're constricted, and you can see I'm even doing this with my body, it's like those things that you're afraid of are hidden within. So with the safety, right, we're allowing our bodies to open, and we have access to those things that might hold us back in life and in birth, and then we alchemize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that alchemy is really, really, really powerful. And I love it. That feels really empowering, actually, because sometimes the fears can be overwhelming to look at.
Yeah.
And so this feels like a really beautiful way. We can go at it cognitively. We can look at our fears. What's the likelihood for them to happen? How can we support ourselves with them? But there's like a level of surrender I find that's required around fears. Like, you do everything you can to prepare. You get all your supports in place, but there's still a level of surrender at the end of the day. Like, you don't really have control. And so what I feel with this beautiful ceremony that you've introduced us to is it's a way to surrender and alchemize.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really true. And that all of us have indigenous original people's roots in this. So, this is a big deal now, and I want to honor it and say you never want to culturally appropriate. And simultaneously, whoever you are, wherever you were born, you have your own roots to this practice. You might not know about those roots, but you have them. There's so much I can say about that.
I had a vision when you were talking about like building the community, and if you don't have that community, building it for yourself. And I was just thinking to myself as you were speaking, wouldn't it be wonderful if like L&D wards, like if this was incorporated into like L&D wards in our hospitals, where all the professionals that were working there had like a ritual when they came in, a ritual when they left, to kind of presence and ground, and even during their day as they needed it.
I love that you're saying that. It's so true, because in the old days, the people who served in the birth field were honored for that. Like, our hospital staff goes through such a hard time.
Yeah.
Because as we both know in different ways, when you give birth, you're going to a very liminal place. Your brain waves are changing. And if you're giving birth and I'm your nurse, and I used to be a nurse, and I'm with you, I'm affected by that one way or the other. So I either have to open to it or shut down to it, or find a place of balance with it and groundedness with it. And just like you, the mother, I deserve that self-care and that compassion and that preparation, which is another thing I'm trying to do with this program, so that I'm really ready, and that I also know how to renew myself after. I'm ready as possible to be there with spaciousness and groundedness.
Yeah. So many thoughts going through my mind as you're
because we're really traveling two realms right now, the inner and the outer.
Yeah, that's true. When you were talking about COVID and like the power of intention and how we can really hold that space, and then bringing that together with this idea that as a healthcare worker, and specifically as a birth worker, you're taking such a journey with each woman that you're supporting, and that can take a toll on your body, or it can nourish your body depending on how you bring it in. And so when you talk about like the power of intention, how, like, could you talk a little bit, like maybe you have some thoughts or suggestions for birth workers to use that power as they're supporting, each woman that they encounter?
That's a great question. So I'd say a few things. One thing I really want to acknowledge, particularly as a nurse, is unfortunately, and I think it's really important to put this as a baseline, we live in a culture based on greed.
Mm.
And so in the hospitals, they understaff. And also in almost all working conditions. So what happens is people are asked to do more than their biorhythms are ready to do.
Mm.
So no matter what their attitude is, it's like being constantly put in acute crisis for 8 hours a day. Yeah, that's the sad truth. So I don't want to ignore that. And advocacy, which is not what we're going to talk about right now, is part of this. But it's so important to say it because people's inner critics can go, oh, if I just had the right attitude. Now, having said that, having a useful attitude is going to reduce your suffering. So it's still totally relevant to talk about, but it's not a either or, and so important. But anyway, so in terms of the right attitude and in terms of the intention, I would intend every day, again, I'm going to just do it my own way, but you do it your way, grandparents, loving wisdom beings, help me not take in what isn't mine.
Mm.
Help me honor what I need to take in. Help me take in, a friend of mine put it this way, help me take in what supports my soul and let go of what doesn't.
Mm.
That's one way to say it. You can use your own words. And then at the end of the day, the same thing. Help me let go of what wasn't mine and help me keep what is. Because like you're asking me a huge question, I could talk 5 hours about it, but if we're going to get down to the nitty gritty, it has to do with boundaries, right? Because they're being exposed to so much there.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Absolutely. It is boundaries. And I love where you started, which is this place of, our systems don't always support our highest good, right? Like you were talking about how working environments tend to be understaffed. And so we can think, oh, it's me, like there's something wrong with me that I can't do, something wrong with me that I can't, function in this environment. And I think that's a thought pattern that most people have experienced in lots of different environments, in and out of the hospital. I see it with kids, like in the school system, and there's a lot of talk about like mindfulness there, right? Like, let's bring mindfulness to our children so that they can cope. And then as parents, we're talking about, well, yeah, mindfulness is great, but there's an issue with the underlying system. So I love that you brought that forward. And I think what that invites is like a gentleness towards ourselves that otherwise we might not have. And I just really want to presence that because I think it's very normal and natural for a lot of us to have those thoughts of like, why can't I just do X, Y, or Z? And what's wrong with me that I can't? And the fact that you can't, or you're having a hard time with it, often it's not you, it's like our systems that need to be upgraded and created to be more supportive.
Absolutely. And it's so true now for our mamas who are home with their kids, like you, but like many, because there's just so much we're at a time where systems are breaking down, but new ones have not been built yet. And that is the hardest time. So yeah, I'm glad you said that.
And it's also exciting as you say that, because it's a time of so much potential. Yes. And that goes back to that idea of like the power of our intent. Like, what is our intent? What's the space that we're holding? Whether it's for our, our clients or for the world at large, like what's the space that we're holding and what's our intention?
Yeah. We do have the opportunity now, more than we've had in a long time. In my opinion, as someone who was a leftist in the 60s, this is more exciting than the 60s. The level of consciousness universally is really high, at a high place. The majority of people, not the system. What, sweetie?
I was saying I love that spot. That gets me so excited. That's that place of like pure possibility, that, that wide open space of creation.
I want to ask you what sign
This is such a gift. I'm so grateful to have this time with you. Before we close, is there anything that you want to share that you haven't already? I know there's so much.
Okay. Yeah. I always, this is it. Do whatever helps you be compassionate to yourself. That's it.
Beautiful.
Thank
Yes, thank you.
you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gena. I will share links to Gena's programs and her website if you'd like to get in touch with her after watching this. I'll put them in the notes below. And just thank you so much for being here and sharing your beautiful wisdom. And I feel like I personally feel so soothed and nourished in this conversation. I'm sure everybody watching is as well.
Good. Oh, it was a great pleasure to talk. It's a pleasure to talk with you, Sheila.
Thank you, Gena. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.